My boyfriend left me because he doesn't understand that a real man adopts, gives his last name to a child even if it isn't his, provides financially for the child and the mother, and stays out of all decisions about the child. It all began with the absolute certainty that my love, a mother's love, is a sacred territory that very few men are prepared to honor. When I met Ignacio, after years of navigating the disappointment that is the dating world as a single mother, I felt that maybe, just maybe, I had found someone who could understand. He was kind, stable, with a smile that seemed genuine and a job that allowed him, in theory, to aspire to something more than just a simple relationship. He approached me knowing that Marcelo, my 5-year-old son, was the center of my universe. That should have been the first red flag, the first warning that he didn't comprehend the magnitude of what that meant. In my naivety, I took it as a sign of his exceptional character. Marcelo is my reason for being. Every beat of my heart, every decision I make, every breath I take, is for and because of him. His biological father vanished into thin air like the morning mist, leaving no more trace than a stain of disappointment in my memory. I swore I would never again allow a man to interfere with the pure connection I have with my son. Ignacio, at first, seemed to respect that. He brought toys, he would bend down to talk to Marcelo at his level, and he would tell me in that calm voice that he admired how I was raising him. I, foolishly, thought admiration was a synonym for understanding. I didn't understand that he only saw the surface, the romantic concept of a blended family, without glimpsing the real price. Our house, mine and Marcelo's, was a sanctuary. The rules were written in the air we breathed. Food is served when Marcelo is hungry. The television shows what entertains Marcelo, and the final decisions, the important ones, are mine. Ignacio started visiting more often, staying over, and little by little, like the tide lapping at the shore, he began to try to change the geography of my sanctuary. One day he suggested that maybe Marcelo was going to bed too late. Another, he questioned if so many sweets were good for him. Each comment was a grain of sand, a small intrusion that I meticulously cleaned away, thinking it was only a matter of time until he learned his place. A real man's place is not to question, it is to provide, to support, to give his last name as a seal of ownership and commitment, but respecting that the work of art, in this case my son, is already finished and does not allow for modifications. I started dropping these pearls of wisdom in conversations, testing the waters. A real man, I would tell him, looking at the horizon as if glimpsing an eternal truth, doesn't need to impose his judgment to feel valuable. His value lies in the solidity of his support. Ignacio would nod, sometimes with a tense smile, other times with a silence that I, in my arrogance, interpreted as deep reflection. Now I know it was the uncomfortable silence of someone beginning to see the abyss. The tension was not violence, it was a constant erosion. It was the look on Ignacio's face when I interrupted one of his games with Marcelo to correct the way he threw the ball. "No, sweetie, not like that," I would say to Marcelo, completely ignoring Ignacio. "Mommy will show you the right way." Ignacio's face would darken slightly. I justified it by thinking that his masculine ego, fragile as glass, was cracking because he couldn't accept that a woman knew more about parenting. I couldn't see that he just wanted to connect, to create an authentic bond. For me, any bond that didn't pass through my filter was a threat. My love, or what I called love, was a fortress with walls that were too high. The idea of adoption didn't come out of nowhere. It was the logical culmination of my philosophy, the final exam for Ignacio to prove whether he was a real man or just another boy in a grown-up suit. One night, after Marcelo had fallen asleep, I lit a candle and prepared his favorite tea. The conversation began with gentle detours. "Ignacio," I said, "have you ever thought about what it really means to be a family?" He, confident, spoke of love, of mutual respect, of building together. I smiled condescendingly. That was the theory. I was offering him the practice. For Marcelo, I continued, my voice as soft as silk but loaded with steel, a father is the one who is there unconditionally. Not the one who contributes a sperm. A father is the one who gives his name, his legacy, the one who secures his son's future without hesitation. I told him about my fears, about the shadow of the absent father, about my dream of seeing a good man's last name next to Marcelo's on all important documents. An adoption, I whispered, taking his hand, would be the ultimate proof of your love. Not just for me, but for him. You would be his father legally. A real man doesn't deny his name to a son he already loves in his heart. Ignacio turned pale. I noticed. The tea grew cold in his hands. It's a very big step, honey, he said, his voice losing the calm that had attracted me so much. It's not just a name, it's rights, enormous legal responsibilities. And what if we have disagreements in the future? There it was, the seed of doubt, the proof that he wasn't man enough. My smile froze. Disagreements, I repeated, letting go of his hand. Ignacio, a real man who adopts a child, does it to give him security, not to gain power. He understands that the final decisions about upbringing, school, health are made by the mother. It's the natural order of things. He provides the stability, she directs the path. The discussion became a minefield we stepped on night after night. I presented my case with the eloquence of a lawyer defending a sacred cause. I told him about the legal vacuum, the fear that something would happen to me and Marcelo would be left unprotected. I painted a picture of a united family under the last name of a man who had chosen to be a hero. Ignacio, for his part, clung to petty details. He talked about the need to be a team, to make joint decisions, that he felt I wanted to turn him into a walking checkbook. His resistance didn't seem like prudence to me, but a monumental cowardice disguised as rationality. Each of his objections was another nail in the coffin of the image I had built of him. I came to sincerely believe that I was being generous. I was offering him the greatest honor a woman can bestow upon a man, the legitimate fatherhood of her son. And he, instead of kneeling gratefully, haggled. He wanted the title, but he also wanted the power to decide. He didn't understand that in the kingdom I had built for Marcelo and me, there is only one throne, and I am sitting on it. Any other seat is that of an advisor at best or a servant at worst. The adoption, in my mind, was the act that would turn him into the head servant, the most honorable, but a servant nonetheless. The central act of my betrayal was not an infidelity, but the presentation of an ultimatum disguised as a romantic proposal. It was on the anniversary of our first year together. I had prepared a special dinner with the same tea and the same candle, but this time on the table there was a folder. Inside were printouts I had downloaded from the internet explaining the procedures for adoption by the mother's partner. There was even a document written by me that outlined what I called pre-adoption agreements. It's a shame there wasn't a camera to capture his expression when he saw it. Ignacio, my love, I began, my voice trembling with feigned emotion, I've been thinking a lot. I don't want to wait any longer. I want you to be Marcelo's father in every sense. I've researched everything. I opened the folder with a triumphant gesture. It's simpler than we think. And so there are no misunderstandings, I added, sliding my document towards him. I've written this. It's just to make our roles clear. You, as the adoptive father, commit to providing everything necessary for his well-being and education. I, as his biological mother and with the primary connection, reserve the right to the final say in all decisions concerning his upbringing, education, health, and extracurricular activities. I remember how his breathing stopped. He read the document, his eyes scanning the lines over and over again. Is this a contract? He asked, and his voice was barely a thread. A contract that makes me a sponsor and you the CEO of our son? The word "are" in his mouth sounded false to me. An attempt at appropriation. It's not a contract, Ignacio, I corrected with exasperated patience. It's a declaration of intent. It's so you know that by taking this step, you are entering an already established family dynamic. A real man is not afraid of this. He embraces it. It's the ultimate proof that your love is unconditional. He stood up from the table so abruptly that the candle went out. The room was plunged into a gloom. Unconditional, he repeated with a bitter laugh I had never heard from him. What you're asking for isn't unconditional, it's servitude. You want me to sign a paper that binds me for life, that makes me legally and financially responsible for a child, but at the same time forbids me from being a real father? What am I then? An ATM with feelings. I felt hurt, deeply hurt. How dare he reduce my sublime vision of love to something so vulgar? How could he not see the beauty, the honor in what I was offering him? That night there was no reconciliation. He went for a walk and I was left crying with rage, not sadness. I was crying for the ruined dinner, for the spoiled anniversary, for the stubbornness of a man who refused to be great. The next day, the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Marcelo, sensitive as always, was restless and clingy. Ignacio tried to hug me and I stiffened. I can't believe you don't see what this means for our future, I snapped. A real man doesn't hesitate when presented with the opportunity to solidify a family. He just sighed with an infinite weariness in his eyes. I'm not doubting the family, he said. I'm doubting whether there's a place for me in this family, or just a hole in my shape that you want to fill. The final confrontation was slow and painful, like the felling of a tree that has been chopped up for weeks. Over the next few days, Ignacio became distant. He no longer played with Marcelo with the same joy. His conversations with me were curt, functional. I attributed it to his inability to process the greatness of my proposal. I convinced myself that he was fighting his own demons of insecurity and that if I stood firm, he would eventually understand. I sent him articles about heroic stepfathers, stories of men who had adopted their partner's children and lived happily ever after. Silently, I assumed. The last straw was an argument about Marcelo's school. I had decided that a private bilingual school on the other side of the city was best. It was very expensive, but a real man doesn't shy away from investing in his son's future, I kept telling myself. I mentioned it to Ignacio as if I were giving him good news. I've chosen the school for Marcelo. The tuition is a bit high, but with your new promotion we'll be able to afford it. He stared at me. You've chosen? Without consulting me, without seeing if we agree, without thinking about the commute, the methodology, anything. His tone was flat, devoid of emotion. Why consult you? I responded, genuinely confused. I'm his mother. I know his needs. You will provide the means. That's how it works. That's how you want it to work, he corrected. But I'm not a means, I'm a person. And if I'm going to be, as you say, his father, I want to have a voice in the decisions that will shape his life. I don't want to just be the wallet that pays the bill. I felt attacked. My authority, my judgment as a mother, was being questioned. It's just not your decision. I screamed, losing my temper. Marcelo is mine. And if you want to be a part of this, you have to accept how things are done. A real man doesn't question, he supports. The silence that followed was more terrifying than any shout. He looked at me with a mixture of pity and horror. I can't, he said finally, his voice calm and firm, which infuriated me even more. I can't sign a paper that turns me into a stranger in my own family. I can't commit to financing a life that I have no right to have an opinion on. I'm sorry, but that's not being a man, that's being an idiot. He picked up his jacket and his phone. Marcelo, who had heard the shouting, started crying in his room. I was so blind with rage that I didn't even go to comfort him immediately. So you're leaving, I spat, with tears of fury running down my cheeks. Because you can't handle the responsibility of a real man. Because you prefer the comfort of a relationship with no real strings attached. He stopped at the door and looked at me one last time. I'm not leaving because of Marcelo, I'm leaving because of you. Because the love you offer isn't love, it's a transaction, and I'm not for sale. And with those words, which echoed like a gunshot in the silence of the house, he left. I collapsed, not because of his departure, but because of the injustice of it all. I had put him to the test, and he had failed. He had failed me. The immediate consequences were a whirlwind of self-pitying indignation. The first few days were the worst. Marcelo cried, asking for Ignacio. Each of his cries was a reminder of Ignacio's disloyalty. How could he do this to me and to him? A man who truly loved a child, wouldn't he fight to stay, even on my terms? I had offered him everything, a family, a son, a purpose, and he had thrown it all away for his selfishness. I kept telling myself over and over that I had done nothing wrong. I had only defended my son's interests. I had only asked for what any mother would demand, total and indisputable security. I tried to contact him, not to apologize, but to make him see his mistake. I wrote him long, convoluted messages, explaining my philosophy again. I told him he still had time to redeem himself, to be the man Marcelo and I needed. His replies were curt. Leave me alone, I need space, there's nothing more to talk about. His coldness confirmed to me that he had never been the man I thought he was. A real man would fight, a real man would understand that my stubbornness was born from the purest love. Now the nights are long and silent. Marcelo has been adapting as children do, but sometimes he looks at me with sad eyes that break my soul, and I, instead of seeing in that sadness the result of my inflexibility, only see the collateral damage caused by Ignacio's cowardice. I have started telling my story to my closest friends, carefully editing it. I tell them about my generous offer of adoption, omitting my pre-adoption agreements. I tell them about his refusal, painting it as a rejection of Marcelo. Some nod with compassion, but others look at me with that doubt in their eyes that I detest so much. It's the same doubt Ignacio had. So here I am, alone again, betrayed by a man who was not up to the highest concept of love. I have learned a painful lesson. It's easier to find a biological father who runs away than to find a man with the strength to become a real father on my terms. My heart is broken, but my conviction is intact. I don't regret asking for what a son deserves. I regret asking it of someone who wasn't man enough to give it. The world is full of boys pretending to be men, and I, once again, had the misfortune of falling in love with one of them. Popular comments from Reddit on the main story. Anonymous User 1. Your ability to frame absolute control and financial demand as a high moral standard is frankly fascinating. You are not describing the love of a real man. You are describing the functions of a sponsor or a trust fund. You want a functional adult to assume all the legal and economic responsibilities of a father, but you flatly deny him any right or voice in the upbringing. Ignacio didn't reject you for not being a man. He rejected you because your idea of a family is deeply toxic and unequal. He didn't want to be a piece of furniture in your life. He wanted to be a partner, and you accuse him of selfishness for that. Response from the AB. That's because you don't understand. The purest love is one that asks for nothing in return, that provides and supports without conditions. If he had trusted me as a mother and my judgment, if he had understood that my only goal is to protect Marcelo, everything would have been perfect. His need to have a voice was nothing but ego. The desire to impose his will on a system that already worked. A real man doesn't need to impose himself to feel valuable. His value lies in his ability to support without questioning. Anonymous User 2. Have you ever stopped to think what it would be like for Marcelo to have a father figure who is by design emotionally and decisionally castrated? Are you denying your son the opportunity to have a real father, someone to guide him, discipline him with love, and be a true partner in his life? Instead, you offer him an ATM with occasional hugs. What you call the natural order of things sounds like the justification of someone who is incapable of ceding control and truly forming a team with another person. Response from the app. That's a lie. I was offering Marcelo the greatest show of love, the security of a last name, of a stable financial future. What he needs is a solid foundation, not more conflicting opinions. I am his mother. I have raised him alone these 5 years, and I know what is best for him. A father's role is not that of a boss, it's that of a pillar. A pillar doesn't give orders, it only supports. Ignacio wanted to be the architect, not the pillar. And Marcelo doesn't need another architect. He already has me. Anonymous User 3. The saddest thing of all is that you've convinced yourself you're a martyr of love. You've built a fortress around your son of which you are both the queen and the prisoner. Ignacio tried to open a door to be a real father, not just a symbol. And you slammed that door in his face. You call his refusal to sign his own abdication as an individual and as a potential significant paternal figure cowardice. The real cowardice here is your terror of sharing control, of ceding even a millimeter of your authority, even when it would benefit your son. Anonymous User 4. You use the phrase "a real man" as a weapon. It's a mechanism of pure and simple emotional control. Every time you repeat it, you're not defining an ideal. You're moving the goalposts so that no man, except one who is willing to completely nullify himself, can meet your expectations. Ignacio realized he was in a game he couldn't win. It's not that he wasn't man enough, it's that he was healthy enough not to want to play. Response from the app. I didn't use any weapon, I just expressed a universal truth that many refuse to accept. Unconditional love exists, and it hurts to realize that the person you thought was special isn't strong enough to offer it. He told me he wasn't for sale, but the thing is, I wasn't selling anything. I was giving him a family as a gift. His pride prevented him from seeing the gift I was giving him. A real man would have seen past his own insecurities and accepted the honorable role I was offering him. Update 1. 3 weeks have passed since Ignacio left. The initial rage has given way to a kind of emotional hangover, a constant weight in my chest that I mistake for sadness, but which I know deep down is indignation. I miss him, I admit. I miss the comfort of having someone here, the feeling that I wasn't alone in this. But every time that thought arises, I crush it by remembering his betrayal. The worst part is seeing Marcelo. He asks about him constantly. When is he coming to play soccer? He promised to help me with the Lego castle. Every question is a knife, and every knife I attribute to Ignacio. He is the one who abandoned him. He is the one who broke a child's heart. A week ago, I couldn't take it anymore. Marcelo was having a monumental tantrum because he couldn't find a toy Ignacio had given him. Through tears, he said he wanted to see him, and a twisted, desperate idea was born in my mind. What if Marcelo asked him to come back? What if Ignacio heard the trembling little voice of the boy he supposedly loved? I grabbed Marcelo's phone, the one he only uses for games and to talk to me or his grandmother, and told him to send a voice message to Ignacio. Tell him you miss him, sweetie, I whispered, holding the phone. Tell him you want him to come back. Marcelo, innocent, did it. His message was heartbreaking. I miss you. Why don't you come anymore? Are you mad at me? The response never came. For hours, I spent the afternoon checking Marcelo's phone, my stomach in a knot. When the notification finally sounded, it wasn't a voice message, it was a text from Ignacio addressed to me, although he sent it to Marcelo's number. It said, "Please don't use Marcelo this way. It's cruel and unfair to him. I need you to respect my space. I'm sorry, but I can't go back to a dynamic that caused me so much harm. Please don't do this to the child." I read the message over and over and rage blinded me. Cruel. Me. He was the cruel one. He was the one who had abandoned a child who loved him. I replied from my own phone. My fingers trembling. You are the cruel one. He cries for you every night. A real man doesn't turn his back on a child who calls for him. You are a coward. My own friends have started to agree with him. I talked to my best friend, Clara, and after listening to me complain about Ignacio for the 10th time, she let out a sigh and said, "Look, maybe you were a little intense with the adoption contract thing. Don't you think you asked for too much?" I felt like I was being stabbed in the back. My friend, the one who had been by my side during my pregnancy. You too. I snapped. You also think that asking for security for my son is being intense? I hung up. The whole world is aligning against me, refusing to see the purity of my intentions. I am alone in my fight for what is right, surrounded by people who prefer the comfort of emotional mediocrity. I've read the comments here, I read them, and I feel a seething contempt. Anonymous user 2, you say I deny Marcelo a real father figure. And what was Ignacio? Nothing. He was a man who wanted the title without the deference that comes with it. Anonymous user 3, are you talking about me? Terror of sharing control? It's not terror, it's common sense. I am the mother. The bond is unique and indissoluble. Any man who enters our life must understand that he is an accessory to that main bond. A valuable complement, yes, but never an equal. My terms were not negotiable because my son's well-being is not negotiable. They don't understand it, nobody understands it. And this loneliness, this cold, is the price I must pay for maintaining my principles in a world that has forgotten what true commitment is. Popular comments from Reddit on Update 1. Anonymous user 1. Update 1 is a case study in emotional manipulation. Using your son as bait to try to get your ex-boyfriend back is of immense moral baseness. Ignacio was absolutely right to ask you not to do it. You are causing psychological damage to Marcelo by putting him in the middle of your adult conflict. Your inability to see that you are the one traumatizing the child with these actions, and not Ignacio's departure, is the core of your problem. You are not a martyr. You are the executioner of your own relationship and of your son's emotional well-being. Response from the app to me: I am not traumatizing him. I am fighting to give him the family he deserves. If Ignacio had an ounce of compassion, he would have come running upon hearing Marcelo's voice. Instead, he sent me a cold message accusing me. He prioritized his space and his harm over the tears of a 5-year-old child. Who is the real executioner here? I just wanted him to see the damage he was causing. A real man would have come to fix things, not hide behind a text message. Anonymous user 2. Every interaction you describe solidifies the idea that Ignacio made the right decision. Your response to his rational and stable message, "Please don't use Marcelo," was to attack him and call him a coward. There is no self-criticism, no moment of, maybe I overreacted. There is only justification and more victimhood. Even your friend, who presumably knows you well, is telling you that you went too far. How many alarm bells need to ring before you consider that maybe, just maybe, the problem is not everyone around you, but your own attitude? Response from the app: My friend doesn't understand the depth of a motherly love like mine. It's easy to judge from the outside without having gone through the betrayal of an absent biological father. I swore to protect Marcelo from that forever. My terms are not an attitude, they are a fortress. And if that means people abandon me or criticize me, then they never deserve to be inside the fortress. Loyalty shouldn't be so hard to find. Anonymous user 3. It's impressive. You managed to narrate a scene in which you emotionally manipulate your son using your ex-partner and then present yourself as the victim because he didn't fall into the trap. Ignacio didn't hide, he protected himself. He protected himself and, by extension, Marcelo from your toxicity. By not getting into that game, he is doing the child a long-term favor. You are teaching Marcelo that love is control and manipulation. Ignacio, with his departure, is showing him that sometimes true love is knowing when to walk away. Anonymous user 4. The damage you are doing to your son is palpable. You are raising a child with the idea that men are disposable instruments that should provide and keep quiet. You are teaching him that love is conditional and that it's okay to use people to get what you want. Please seek therapy. Not for yourself, but for Marcelo. He is the only innocent one in this whole disaster, and he deserves a mother who is willing to review her own actions for the benefit of his mental health. Final update. Today is a day that will feel the weight of my disappointment for the rest of his life. 3 months have passed. The wound is no longer open. It has become a cold, hard scar. I no longer cry, I just feel a deep disdain for human nature. And then, today, as I scrolled my finger across the screen, I saw it. It was a dull, dry blow to the center of my chest. A photo of Ignacio in a restaurant, smiling with a woman with straight hair and an easy smile. I noticed it immediately, without the worry lines that motherhood leaves on a face. She didn't have a child hanging from her leg. She didn't have warning looks in her eyes. She was light, easy. The caption read, "Happy to start new chapters with someone who does value partnership." He didn't tag me. Of course not, but the message was for me. I knew it. Someone who does value partnership. Partnership. He's talking to me about partnership? The partnership of abandoning a child who loved you? The partnership of running away when things get tough and require real commitment? I looked at that photo over and over again. His smile was relaxed, the same one he had with me at the beginning, before I showed him the depth of the love I demand. Now he was directing it at someone who, I'm sure, doesn't ask him to adopt anyone, who doesn't demand that he be a real man. And there, at that moment, in front of the phone screen, all my rage, my pain, and my indignation solidified into a crystalline, uncomfortable truth. I didn't lose Ignacio. He lost me. He lost the opportunity to be part of something real, something that transcends the simple partnership of a dinner in a restaurant. He lost the chance to be the hero in Marcelo's story. He chose the easy way out. He chose a woman with no history, without the glorious baggage of motherhood, without the challenge of loving a child that wasn't his. He settled for less. He settled for the simple. Marcelo came running at that moment with a torn drawing in his little hands. "Look, Mommy, it's Ignacio and me playing soccer." I took his face in my hands and told him with a calm that surprised myself, "Marcelo, honey, Ignacio was a boy who wasn't ready to be a man. And we don't need boys in our lives, we are strong. We have each other." He looked at me confused and went off to play. I kept looking at the photo. It didn't hurt anymore, it just confirmed everything I've always known. The world is full of Ignacios. Men who play at being adults, who look for partners, not families, who run away from the glorious weight of true responsibility. I am too much for them. My love is an ocean, and they only know how to swim in puddles. And this loneliness, this cold, clear understanding, is my martyr's crown. I wear it for all the women who ask for more and settle for less. I didn't settle, and that's why I'm alone, but it's a loneliness that is worth more than any cheap partnership. Popular comments from Reddit on the final update. Anonymous User 1. The level of self-deception in this final update is monumental. You've taken the evidence that Ignacio has moved on with his life and twisted it to fit your martyr narrative. He didn't choose the easy way out, he chose sanity. You're not too much. For him, your conception of a relationship is toxic and unsustainable. The saddest part is that you're using this crystalline truth to poison your son against him and against men in general. You're teaching him that contempt is a virtue. Anonymous User 2. My love is an ocean and they only know how to swim in puddles. That sentence should be framed as the ultimate example of an unreliable narrator. No, your love is not an ocean. It's a deep, dark well with arbitrary rules on the walls, and you expect people to throw themselves in without knowing if they'll ever be able to get out. Ignacio looked into the well, saw there was no way out, and went on his way. That doesn't make him a puddle swimmer, it makes him a sensible person. The fact that you see his happiness with another person as a personal affront instead of an opportunity for reflection says it all. Response from the app. You can dress it up with all the psychological words you want. Sanity, sensibleness. I call it by its name, mediocrity. He didn't want the ocean. He wanted an inflatable pool where there was no risk of drowning. He preferred the comfort of a life without the sacred demands of real fatherhood. That's not sensibleness, it's smallness. And I don't poison Marcelo. I tell him the truth. I teach him not to depend on anyone because in the end, everyone fails you. It's a hard lesson, but it's the only one that works in this world. Anonymous User 3. This has been one of the most predictable and avoidable tragedies I've read here. The protagonist not only learned nothing, but she has used the final twist to sink even deeper into her distortion. I feel sorry for Marcelo. He is being raised by a mother who sees love as a war where she is the only victim and the only heroine. There is no happy ending here. Only the slow and continuous poisoning of a child who deserved better. Response from the app. Marcelo will have a mother who will never give up, who will never lower her standards, and who will teach him not to settle for crumbs of affection. He will have a mother who prefers dignified loneliness to compromised companionship. That's better than any fairy tale happy ending that depends on the reliability of another person. I am his happy ending. I am all he needs. And if the world calls us toxic for that, then so be it. At least our fortress is intact.